A new Paramount Plus documentary looks into the infamous rise and fall of Milli Vanilli. The European duo, Robert Pilatus and Fabrice Morvan, rose to fame quickly in the 1990s, even clinching a Grammy for Best New Artist. But all that came crumbling down when everyone found out that they never actually sang a single note on their hits. For more on this, we're joined by singer and dancer and member of the pop duo Fabrice Morvan and Luke Korem, who produced and directed this fascinating documentary. Good to see you both. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning.
So, Fab, let me start with you. What was it like to tell your side of the story? Because as my colleague Anne-Marie pointed out at the top of our show, it felt like everybody else was telling your story and everybody else had the narrative, but we really never heard from you until this documentary, at least not from your heart and from your soul.
You're right. It was very gratifying because finally I was able to tell my story and have people really walk in my shoes. And from what I've heard from all the reactions, everyone felt what we felt. And we felt left all alone, and people were pointing the finger, and somehow the guilty ones, walked away scot-free and nothing happened to them, and we took the blame. Rob died of a broken heart as a result. So for me to be able, my story finally after 30 years and some change was super gratifying. It makes me feel good. And it's not just me telling my story, it's also the other members who took place in this project. So everyone finally can tell their truth, and when you look at what happens, 1 + 1 = 2, not 3.
And in fact, there were a lot of victims in this kind of scandal. And I put it in like air quotes because as we were talking earlier, it just doesn't seem like much of a scandal now. But back then, it seemed like such a bombshell. It's a great documentary, by the way. And,
Awesome.
Luke, one of the things that you this is what I loved about this documentary. I was totally drawn in by the story. And then every once in a while, the music would start playing and I would start dancing. And it reminded me of how great every single one of these songs were, and that you needed the music and the musicians and you guys, Fab and Rob, to make that great moment, But I digress. Clearly, I was a fan. But I want to talk to you, Luke, a little bit about Frank Farian. So he's like this super producer who's kind of behind this whole thing. Not the first time that he did something like this, right? Boney M. My mom was a huge Boney M fan, so we knew all the words. And then we, pull back the curtain and we see Frank Farian's here. And one of the things that you sort of touch on in the documentary is that he used Black talent. But it seemed that he had little regard for the Black people providing the talent. Luke, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, that was a super important part of the story that we wanted to make sure was well communicated in the film. We had executive producer Hanif Abdurraqib that really helped make sure that we refined that part. And it was quite disturbing, when you look back at Frank Farian's history, what's interesting is he wanted to be a solo singer in Germany, and he actually had a little bit of a successful career, but he liked Black music, and his label said, hey, you're white, you can't sing that. And so he created this Wizard of Oz idea of, well, I'll just be behind the curtain. And what started off for him, maybe innocently, turned out to be something that was really terrible. And he exploited people, in particular Black artists, over and over again. And for me, what was so tragic in this is not just the deception, because it was great music and entertainment, but when everyone found out, all the hate came down on Rob and Fab, and they weren't even the ones who created the deception in the first place. And I thought that was so unfair.
I think that, we're all having this moment now where we're looking back at some of the people that we admired have been treated. When you talk about everything sort of came down on Rob and Fab, I'm thinking about, Janet Jackson and what happened during the Super Bowl and how everything sort of came down on her. I'm thinking about now we're looking at Britney Spears and some of the cringeworthy sort of interviews that we thought were normal back in the day. Fab, do you think that, this is kind of like the right moment to tell your story because it's a moment where we're all kind of questioning our past behavior?
Well, the thing is, I believe that the universe delivered it at the right time. There is no perfect time. It just came now. It took some time for me to get the right people. And when Bradley and Luke came around, I was like, okay, I trust those guys. And it was not just about the headlines. It was about their human story the inner workings of the music industry, which not too many projects like ours have touched on the way we've done in this project. It really is an eye opener to how artists are being treated. You know, they're being used and then thrown. When you're no good, you're not selling as much. Well, you know, maybe you're a problem. Let's kick him to the curb.
Yeah.
So I'm really pleased that Luke took the approach.
Yeah, and Luke and Fabrice, I want you to weigh in on this too. That Grammy Award, winning that Grammy Award seemed to be the turning point for Milli Vanilli. But again, when you look back, and there have been incredible, we sort of touched on it, the way that the music industry, which only exists because of Black artists. I mean, when I talk about the popular music industry, I don't mean classical. I mean pop culture in this country, which has been exported around the world. Rock and roll, pop music is a direct result of Black artists. Ultimately, some artists melded country music and gospel into what we call popular music. But there's always been this exploitation of Black artists and then kicking them to the curb when something doesn't go exactly the way it's meant to go. And the Grammys have not been immune to that. You could talk, even as recently with The Weeknd and with Drake and other artists complaining about the voting process of the Grammy Awards. That's not old. Just in 30 seconds, tell us what that means to you, Luke.
Well, I'll go first. I mean, like, look, I think, one, you look at the Grammy website, 1989, Tracy Chapman won Best New Artist. 1991, Mariah Carey did. 1990, no one. They're trying to wipe this from the record as if it never happened, which I think it's horrible. Number two, Clive Davis and Arista Records made hundreds of millions of dollars. And in our documentary, it reveals that they knew. How could you not know, right? I mean, and for them to walk away, and for reporters at the time to not investigate the record label is ridiculous. And there again is the racial theme, because it's like, no, it's these two Black guys.
Fab, we were running out of time.
Can I say this?
Go ahead.
The documentary is great.
Yes.
Fab, you sound great.
You sound great, brother.
And breathing life into Blame It on the Rain is, you know, doing homage to your partner in this whole journey. Thank you so much. I encourage people to watch it.
And much love to Rob's family, Fab.
Yes, for sure. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Luke.
You can stream the new Milli Vanilli documentary anytime on Paramount Plus. We should note that CBS News and Paramount Plus are part of Paramount Global.